Hello and welcome to the Ospreys Eyrie podcast. The podcast who I was going to tweet before the Ospreys Scarlets game. I wouldn't tweet that there's nothing in this Ospreys team. It is me, James Reese, as always, your host alongside Yestin. Yestin, how are we?
Very good, thanks. Well, it's going to be quite an exciting pod, isn't it? Not because there's been much news. It's mainly because of one particular result, and I think everyone here is very happy with said result.
And much like Welsh derbies, you wait all year for them, and then two come along in consecutive weeks. Joining us once again is the infallible Robbie Owen of the Squidge Rugby channel. How are we, Robbie?
Good, 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 good. Somehow surviving despite former Osprey centres fighting and bickering in my mentions today, which has been something that you never get used to. I've realised you never get used to Josh Matavesi and Ashley Beck bickering in your mentions.
Ashley Beck was in there as well.
Yeah.
I didn't see this.
I mean, it was a whole thing, and I regret the tweet. Sometimes you just send a tweet off, and then you're like, "Oh no, I think I've been in the situation before and learnt from it." And then 5 years passes, and you accidentally knock Josh Matavesi's confidence while he's playing in Japan, and it's something you've got to learn from. But yeah, Ashley Beck was then in there saying, "Yeah, you love the dummy anytime," and they had a bit of a back and forth. Very strange situation when you grew up watching these people on TV.
Yeah, I didn't realize Beck had actually responded. I saw the motivation.
I'm seeing the Beck reply. That's quite funny. Ashley Beck is actually a very funny man.
Bring him back.
Bring him back. Bring him home. Although he's open, very niche knowledge. I'm pretty sure he's opened like a children's play area
Oh,
in Worcester. He's very settled in Worcester. I know that they loved
yeah.
him up there.
He was coach of the women. It was attack coach for the women.
Yes,
and then
he
obviously
was.
that's just gone under. So
His he was very close with Kovacic because
right,
their
okay,
their partners are very close. Anyway, we're going on a tangent already about former players. Josh Matavesi, please come back as well.
yes,
We did at one point have all three Matavesis very briefly. Sam was only here for like I think like literally because Joel and
mm.
Sam Sam were here, Josh, sorry, and then Sam obviously went on to pastures new. But we had Joel while he was about 12. And then
Yeah.
he bounced around as well.
I remember Joel turning out in the. You remember when they used to do the sevens? The like,
Yes.
yeah. I remember Joel turning out in that and being really confused why Josh Matavesi was much thinner now. Just seeing Jay Matavesi on the team sheet.
Okay, so let's go straight into some news. There is not much news this week. In terms of personnel, we were quite lucky. We picked up no real injuries from the weekend. It was revealed that Jack Walsh did tweak something in the warm-up, but he managed to play around 60 minutes, and it was more precaution bringing him off. Um, he played really well on Saturday, so we're really glad to see him. Uh, you know, uh, not on the injury table for a long time. We'll come
I
on to
don't
the
want to
team later.
say he should tweak something every week in the warm up,
No,
but
no,
you know
but
what? He did all right for him. It worked all right for him.
it was his most controlled game. It was his most Quinn Williams game
Hmm.
as Jack Walsh. Other than that, as revealed in the Scrum 5 podcast today, James Ratty did suffer a fractured collarbone. There is no time scale on his injury yet. He's seen a specialist on Thursday. Alex Cuthbert is back running. There is no time scale on his return yet. But according to the man himself, he is raring to go. The Ospreys, as revealed by Toby Booth, are looking to send three players to Bloemfontein in March, which I believe is Curry Cup season
Yeah,
in
yeah,
March.
that's the idea. They're going to go out to
Yeah,
start the Curry Cup season, which overlaps
cool.
obviously with the Six Nations, which is the
Exactly.
difficulty.
Well, Toby Booth did go on to say this is permitting the Six Nations injuries that will inevitably come. They have earmarked three players. Obviously, he has not revealed them, but that is definitely happening.
Though he did in the just to
Go on.
The post-match press conference, he did talk about Dan Edwards rather. He talked about they're going to send a young player Dan Evans out. See how he gets on his crutches. No, Dan Edwards, when asked about him, he said he's a player that really benefit from going and playing Super Rugby and getting, to use his phrase, if you want to play like Boofy Bingo, right? Every time he talks about Dan Edwards, he would talk about him needing time in the saddle. And that is his phrase every time. He said it twice on Viaplay afterwards. He said it twice in the press conference afterwards. He said it again on S4C, again on Scrum 5. Every single time he's asked about Dan Edwards or young fly halves, he will say they need time in the saddle. And he said he can get time in the saddle going and playing in South Africa, playing 10. So imagine he's one of those three.
I feel like we need Boothie Bingo every week now.
Oh, so this is my favorite game. I watch the press conference every week and have these little phrases and bits and pieces. He says bits and pieces all the time. That's one of my favorites.
Well, there's another one.
Mindful. He's mindful of a lot.
Yeah.
Find a way to win. There's another.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Find a way to win. You always said that during last season. I was actually there for the press conference, and the contrast of moods between him and Dwayne Peel was staggering. And he even gave Tom both an introduction to the journalist as off record, so you wouldn't have seen this. So as he opens the door to come in, he steps aside and speaks and says to the journalists, "A big warm welcome to Tom Botha, everybody."
To young bull Tom Botha.
Yeah,
from Wales Pro.
I'm trying to think what other things that Booth always says.
We're in the entertainment business. That's the one.
That's the entertainment business.
That's my favourite one. We're in the entertainment business.
The other one my brother pointed out to me is he says a lot, sports all about so and so. And it'll be a different thing every time. But it's always, sports all about this, sports all about that.
He's like a man who, or like a teacher who's done the same assembly for 5 days and just changes up the script ever so slightly to stop himself going insane. Which I don't blame him. If I got asked 8 million questions about George North, I'd be like that too. Which, speaking of George North, there is no concrete fact about where he's going to Provence, whether he's going to Japan. Toby Booth has said they will sit down with him. They will, of course, try and negotiate the contract. But if George is to go, which is looking like the case, there is no malice. And I'm sure any fan of Welsh rugby and of the Ospreys will not, tar George with the brush that he's gone for the money or anything like that. Of course, he's gone for the money. He's got a young family, and all the power to him. The reason he wasn't involved in the game on Sunday was because he developed a knee infection and became quite ill. Which obviously he's gutted about, but it only added fuel to the fire, and a lot of speculation came out of that. Then finally, there is no news on the length of the Cheetahs players' stay. To my understanding, they are to go back after Saturday's game.
Okay.
Because if they play in the Challenge Cup, they will be cup tied, and of course the Cheetahs are in said Challenge Cup. So to my understanding, they're going back, but there's lots of rumours going around that they're going back around Christmas time. And a lot, but to my initial understanding, it was a month and a bit long loan. Yes, have you heard similar?
Yeah, I think we probably picked it up from the same story or somewhere. I think someone said something about before the Challenge Cup games, as you just mentioned, about the players that were cup tied. But I think Daniel Kasende has probably already earned the lifetime contract as it is. So that would be interesting to see the developments of that over the next week or so. And of course, as you just mentioned, the players that could be going out to South Africa to play Currie Cup rugby. So, it's all going to be interesting when things get revealed and when players go back and when players go to South Africa. So certainly something to keep an eye on.
It was the interesting thing in that Scrum 5 podcast that when they interview Greatest Player in the World, Dan Kasende, he does say, "I'm living in Mumbles rather than I'm staying in Mumbles," which maybe it's a word and I'm reading too much into it, but that sounds like a longer term stay. If I was leaving somewhere next week, I probably wouldn't refer to myself as living there.
Yeah, I'll hold my hands up. I haven't actually seen the podcast yet. I've been a little bit busy today, so with university work and all that. I haven't had time to caught up with it, but it's next on my listen list. But yeah, I think after what you just said, it's really interesting, and it feels like Kasende knows a lot about the Ospreys. It feels like someone's given him a book and said, read that and just become one of us. And it looks like he's read it multiple times over the course of his stay, or maybe longer, and has firmly become one of us. And the gif on Twitter is just going from there.
Maybe he just delivered, as the postman, maybe he delivered it to himself.
Yeah, I think
that's a
he watched that loss, we lost by about 40 points a few years ago on repeat for the week. Sort of like he had his eyelids pinned open or something like that, and he just watched that for a week and decided now his only mission in life is to fight every man in the Scarlets jersey. Like he's gone and found Phil Price and had a fight with him somehow. Werner Kruger, yeah, he's had it as well. Even if former Scarlets players, they're all having it. That's why John Barkley won't appear on Viaplay anymore. He's scared of Daniel Kasende.
It's why Stephen Jones and Reece Patchell and Lee Halfpenny have all gone to New Zealand. They're heading to the other side of the world to run away from it.
It's absolutely brilliant. Well, let's move into. We'll talk about Daniel Kasende now, because I did put out some listeners' questions on the Eyrie Twitter account. You can follow us at Ospreys Eyrie on Twitter. And one of them was from the Cardiff Central podcast, hosted by Rap's own Dr. Harley Worthy. And he said, are we 100% sure that Daniel Kasende isn't actually from Port Talbot? The aggro he was throwing around the Scarlets would make most diehard, actually, I'm going to change that to all diehard fans of Ospreys proud. Look, it's out there. I think, jokes aside, I put out a tweet on Monday morning, I believe it was, and it's done quite well. It's the pod's biggest tweet, but it genuinely said that Daniel Kasende has been here for a month, right? And the photo was him squaring up to, I think it's Ben Williams. And it's the way he's squaring up to that Scarlets player, you'd swear he was born here and grew up like, any other Ospreys fan hating the Scarlets. Right? And most people agreed, Josh Gardner of the Blood and Mud, he was spearheading this sort of thing as well. And then, I had some Scarlets fans in my mentions saying, "Do that because a bit over the top, don't you think?" And I want to say this now. No, I don't think it's over the top, because part of the issue with Welsh rugby is we sign non-Welsh qualified players, and that's brilliant, but they have to buy into culture, right?
Yeah.
They've got to come over. You look at the players who came over during the Galactico era, and even in the eras, past, they bought into a culture. Josh Matavesi was loved by the fans, and he loved being here. I'm looking at, Jerry Collins, all right, he liked to drink. He was in every pub when, Thursday, 9 a.m. Matty Holler, Justin Marshall, he's very proud of the fact that his daughter was born in Wales. The lesser celebrity ones, Tyler Ardron, absolutely loved his time in Wales. Jeff Hassler, they bought into the culture they were in. And then the player, I'm not going to name players who didn't buy into that culture, but you can see the differences in popularity with the fans and in performance.
Yeah.
I personally think, shout out to Michael Collins, who followed us on Twitter this week. For me, Michael Collins was one of the ones who bought into that culture and played like it. And he went really under the radar. And I thought Ospreys were at best last season when Michael Collins was on the field. And I know I'm not alone in that point. I don't think it's over the top. Daniel Kasende is what a non-Welsh qualified player should be.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Complete instant fan favourite, Dan Kasende. As you mentioned, Josh of Blood and Mud. And I did we've got an ongoing thing where we'll, often speak during Ospreys games. Last year before that, it was almost exclusively us just sending FFS Webby to each other over and over again, and then being more annoyed when he scored a try immediately after making some stupid error. But but yeah, like I sent Josh like, is it okay that I think I love Dan Kasende already? And he was like, mate, no, I am buying stock in this guy. I am all over him. And it seems to be like you open Twitter and everyone is all over him. Everyone loves him instantly. Because you say he just got stuck in. He joined who knows how many other mauls. He started who knows how many other fights. He won that great turnover. He had only a couple of chances with the ball, and when you sign a winger from the Democratic Republic of Congo, you're going, oh, that we've signed him because he's stupidly quick. And by all accounts, he is stupidly quick. We didn't get to see that on Sunday rather. And yet he came out as a fan favorite because of the way he put himself about and the spirit and the ways you say he bought into the culture and really put himself on the line for the team and just seemed like, as you say, he'd been here 100 years and he really cared about the club and was really honoured to be here and playing in this game.
Yes, then what was there much chatter among the press about Sunday or?
Don't think there was. I think the majority of it was mainly because how much the Ospreys dominated up front. I'm sure we will get onto that later on, but yeah, it just looked like Kasende had been here for years. Like it's like Jeff Hassler had been reborn out of nowhere and is now Daniel Kasende. And I don't really know how I've managed to put those two players together, but I have. I think I want to say it was around the last 10 minutes where he made that. We just picked the ball up from his own 22, just went running right round everyone, and then put that chip ahead, which was a good kick, and it caused chaos in the Scarlets backfield because it landed right in the middle of the field, and there's probably a couple of worried Scarlets backfield players not wanting to pick that ball because Kieran Williams was running right at them, and we all know what happens there. But yeah, as we mentioned, it just feels like Kasende's already a cult hero, and if that is his only ever Ospreys start, if he does go back to the Cheetahs some point soon, or if he stays longer, then great. If he does go back, there's he is in the niche 15 and he's got the captain's armband straight away, regardless of anyone else ever. Dan Kasende, he's the man.
He's social secretary, he's president, he's everything. And just this, like I met him on Saturday, on Sunday, sorry, where my as Yestin will know, where we entered the stadium is right next to the Riverside, and the Ospreys, one of the Ospreys higher ups who is South African himself, I can't remember his name,
Not
was
Liam?
bringing. I think it might be Liam. You are right.
Yeah.
Was bringing Dan, Rivan, and Marnus around. And I'm an external guy. I do podcasts and whatnot. I work in schools, and even I was scared to be like, "Oh, Dan, a photo and stuff." And he was just the nicest bloke ever. And he was just chatting. He went over and shook my grandfather and his friend's hand. They were all saying well done. Same with Ruan Kruger as well, who I thought was great when he came on, apart from his speculative box kick. But you can't be an Osprey without having speculative box kicks.
And that was it. We've signed a South African. We've signed an obscure South African 9. Of course, he's going to randomly box kick it to no one.
and then caught it himself.
Yeah. He missed that box kick very well, I have to say. I think he's just sent this one to the air, and you're thinking, there's no one on the wing to chase this, because this might be a contender for one of the silliest Ospreys moments of the day. Then all of a sudden he's just off and chasing it like
Revan Red. Revan, please.
The most beautifully South African scrum half thing I've ever seen in my life. It was wonderful. If that's his sole contribution, as you say, wonderfully placed.
I didn't even think Faf de Kleur's ever done that before.
Yeah.
And then this has just come breaking news. Well, it's not breaking news because it actually came from 2017. Do you guys know what happened on the 29th of November in 2017 in Ospreys history?
29th of
November.
2017. Would it be that win over Northampton?
No.
Was that around then?
That was
Tom Haberfield scoring.
Time. That was December time. Was it?
Okay, of course it was.
Was it the Saracens game when Dan Evans scored a brace and Sam Cross scored on the wing?
No. Ospreys confirmed the signing of Welsh Rugby Union star Scott Williams on a 3-year deal.
Oh,
Wow. Well. Didn't we sign
Well,
on
well.
at a similar time? Was
I don't know, but it's come up on my Facebook memories, and I don't want to remember that. Scott Williams signed for us this sick. Was that how many years ago was that now? Many years ago, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Remember that.
the second question.
No, but like, I don't know. Scott Williams is still playing.
Not
He's still
well.
going.
Playing
Like,
is doing a lot of
yeah, I
work
mean, he
there.
came off the bench for the Scarlets last week.
and got a
Like
yellow
that,
card.
yeah. But like, I can't get my head around the fact it's the same guy who stripped Courtney Laws at Twickenham. You know,
Yeah,
like
it's yeah. My suspension of
was
disbelief
great in the
won't go
2011
there.
World Cup because like he was like there's a number of players that Alan Clark wrecked or almost wrecked by being the kind of anti Toby Booth in destroying team culture and I've heard I'm sure we all have around things from players or various sources and whatever about like the way he perhaps wasn't the greatest man manager. Scott
Was it
Williams, obviously there's the injury worries there, but like he was never the same player after leaving for the Ospreys.
was it him Brendan Leonard had a fight with, or was that Steve Tandy?
Oh, I don't know. I hadn't
Didn't
heard that.
Brendan Leonard or was that? It might have been Dan Bigg actually had a fight with one of them. But Brendan Leonard, I'm pretty sure, led a players' revolt against one of the coaches.
I want to say that
Right.
was the end of the Tandy era.
That
And
might have been the end of the Tandy era.
I might
I
have
hadn't
been.
heard this.
I might have been because Clark came in as defense coach, didn't he? That season as Tandy left, and chaos
And they
amongst
said
the season.
they said they were going to do a
And
great worldwide search for the best man for the job. And they
Yeah.
went, oh, it's the guy on our doorstep.
So it's like going back to that Scrum 5 podcast, which reminded me of this, and I will remember this now. I think once a week is when Dwayne Peel said, "I'm going to experience different cultures when signing for Sale." He's
Manchester's
gone
got
to
it's very varied,
he's
very
gone to the
varied.
hacienda and he's
He's
listened to an Oasis album. That's all he's done.
he's gone to the gay village. That's what he meant.
He's Dwayne, what a man. We'll come on to Dwayne later.
Yeah.
And then finally, the other and probably actual question from the wonderful Rodri Aranca, saying, what can the other regional coaches learn from Toby Booth? And he phrased it in a very good way, actually. He phrased it around the positivity around Booth, the way he comes across in interviews. And he says, lots of positivity surrounding Supreme Leader Booth. What could the other coaches learn from how he and his team manages on and off field affairs? I'll take the lead on this one, and Robbie, you'll be able to talk about culture and which I know you've championed on every social media platform, especially Reddit. Um, so I think one is honesty, openness with the press, right? Every coach hates doing press conferences, and we've all watched thousands and thousands of press conferences. And I look at the Dwayne Peel ones. I look at the jockey ones, even some of the English ones as well. And then you got the international ones, and no one enjoys them. But he brings a sense of honesty, calmness, sort of brings everyone down to the same level. You can clearly tell that certain journalists he maybe doesn't like, or they run him up the wrong way, and who can blame him sometimes. But he approaches it with a very politician-like mindset of, well, you're going to ask me a question, I'm not going to answer it directly, but I'm going to give you a better answer that's more quotable. And we talked about Boothie's bingo earlier, and he is like a life coach. In terms of he will read the same spiel, but because he believes in it. So he believes in this idea of we will find a way, that we're in the entertainment business, but we're also results driven. We know from evidence he believes in developing young players into internationals, right? And he's got the pedigree and the history to back that up. His portfolio, is huge. And then how he brings that then into a club. On Friday they do a social that could be anything from they go to a bar, they go to mini golf or something like that. Still keeping it relevant for the 21st century, but old traditions. The the way he obviously has brought through popular coaches. So Fussell, who's been at the Ospreys for years, local lad. He will have played with a lot of the boys who are older now, but way younger when he was playing. Same with Duncan Jones, Mark Jones as well. Mark Jones lives in the local area, as does Duncan, as does Fuss. They're popular with the boys. They are building a culture of just positivity. So when you do that, then even when you lose, so even when you lose against Glasgow in the last dying minutes, or you have a really just shocking performance against the Dragons, you're not going into work on Monday or Tuesday thinking this is going to be a shit week, because actually you've got your mates around you. You're in an atmosphere where you enjoy it. And I'm not going to rag on them. I said I'm not going to rag on them much tonight, but that isn't there at the Scarlets. No one is going to work on a Monday thinking, yes, it's going to be an absolutely amazing week when it's clearly not. And I feel like that there isn't that at the Ospreys. So Robbie, how would you develop on that?
Yeah, well, I think the key thing actually, when you look at Toby Booth, right, you look at his Twitter profile, and it's interesting he says in that Scrum 5 piece about how he feels it's important, social media is important with a younger generation and everything. But the other key thing is you look at his Twitter description, right, in terms of how he describes himself. And it is professional performance coach and developer of people rather than rugby coach or, anything related to the particular sport. Then the, Ospreys head coach, EQ over IQ and, emotional quotient rather than intelligence, which I think is just very telling in how he approaches things. And he looks to each player as an individual. He looks to how you work with those and build that into a culture, build that into a team. It really just feels like this Ospreys team fight for each other no matter what. And there are games where they've been terrible, where you still feel like, no, but this team clearly cares about each other and builds towards each other. And there's something he said a year or two back that he wanted to, part of the appeal of the job for him was that the Ospreys is one of the few teams in professional rugby where rugby is, a primarily working class game. And he wanted to build a culture around that and work around that. You're sort of looking at the Welsh regions and Gloucester, and that's sort of it in the and Munster, and that's it in the UK and Ireland, really.
Maybe put Sale in there as well.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, there's a few like Sale, I guess Glasgow increasingly
Newcastle.
make an argument for. Yeah,
although the Newcastle one is tipped on his head slightly by the football team being a bit more working class and
well, exactly.
Newcastle.
Yeah,
But it is more working class
and
than people make out to be.
yeah, no, that's fair. And a lot more Argentine as well. I
Yeah.
don't know what Mateo Carreras' background is. But yeah, but like that identity clearly is sprung up of people who work hard for each other. And no one feels greater than each other. No one feels greater than the team. They had any number of big stars when he came in. And I think perhaps that's some of the supposed friction between him and Alan Wynne-Jones, being that I think Alan Wynne-Jones viewed himself as bigger than some of the other players in a way that Booth didn't, and viewed him as, as a member of the starting 15, but not necessarily, the all-time great that Alan Wynne, I think by the end, viewed himself as entirely correctly. But yeah, I don't know. And there's something really telling when I went into the Ospreys camp last year, which was still a big honor and still a hell of a thing to have done. And seen like Dan Evans going and collecting his peas whilst on crutches, and all of that. And like the fact that when we had, I did a thing for people that didn't see it of I played Jonah Lomu rugby with Morgan Morris and Will Griffiths, which was a very silly thing to have done, but good fun. And the entire squad came and stood behind and like chirped and joined in and were going with it. And that is not happening at other clubs. That is not all other clubs. That is not a given at other places where they'll come and everyone's having a great time and everyone's enjoying it. And highlight that video is Booth himself walking in, looking at the screen and grinning broadly when he recognizes it's Jonah Lomu rugby in the background. I didn't notice at all. I was so swept up in the two of them are big lads, and I am not particularly big, but they are big lads. But yeah, I don't know. I could go on for hours and hours and hours about the impact I think Toby has had, but I feel I'm not alone in feeling much more connected to this team than having even in areas where they've perhaps been more successful or won more games. I love watching them at the end of
Yes,
the day.
did
Yeah,
you?
kind of similar boat really, because as Robbie just mentioned about the teams that might be more successful, I think probably the most enjoyable games that I've watched or supported the Ospreys, and either games watching on TV or being very fortunate to be attending those games, were the ones during the Toby Booth era.
Hmm.
Look at how the squad managed to get itself together, go to Leicester, go to Welford Road, a ground where they have faced some difficulties and when they had a really good side, and they go there and win in like the 92nd minute or something remarkable like that. Look at the first hour of the Saracens game, and you're thinking, you probably look at it on paper and you're thinking, oh, Saracens should be winning comfortably. But after about an hour, it's a 3-point game. And whilst I might have had a sleepless night or two about the final quarter and how it just slips away so slowly, and it was probably the longest 20 minutes I've experienced. It just, that there's something about that squad. It just felt like they were all tight. And I think this season is even more so now with the younger players coming through and things like that. You got the likes of Dewi Lake, Nicky Smith, Adam Beard, James Fender, who was particularly good on the weekend. Rhys Davis, who again is having a good time at 6. Jack Morgan, Morgan Morris. You go through most of the current squad now, and most of them are all local players, and that they really want to represent the region. And I think I remember briefly speaking to Toby Booth at Edinburgh Airport after the fortnight after the Saracens game, as we were coming back from the Edinburgh game, and the performance on the Saturday night wasn't very good. And Toby Booth owned up to that. He said that's not us. That it's something that we're not particularly proud of as a playing squad. So you could see it then. They do care about supporters, and I think the playing squad probably do as well. They're just all so tight, and I think credit, all that credit should really go to Toby Booth to get that squad all together and giving performances. Maybe results might not have got as planned, but giving us performances that we look back on thinking, you know what, they worked really hard that game, regardless of the result. They all put 100% in.
And I think people have really short memories of Booth as well. This squad under Booth has been through a lot. 2 years ago, the most promising hooker in Wales lost his leg while he was a current playing member of the squad and had to retire from rugby. Ospreys had to go and play Sale at home a couple of days after that, or after that happened, right? I remember I was working in a pub at the time, and I just remember, Even Phillips was one of my favorite players to watch, and it's easy to say that now, but he genuinely was mercurial at hooker, and I fully expect he would have been in that Wales squad, that Six Nations, and I maintain that. They went through that. Well, they went through a players' revolt against the WIU over contract things. They've been through countless merger talks, right, and slander from the press, from their own fans, yet they turn up every week and the effort is there. The wants to please fans is there. The bringing through of young talent, local Welsh talent, and then the imports that we've brought in have brought into that culture, like we said. All right, not everyone might have, but have brought in, and not everything's going to work out. The academy, since Booth has taken over, is in a much better place than it was, and full credit to Mike Ruddock for going through that as well. Dan Griffiths involved in that as well. The profile of the academy's gone up. They were on that Rook Stars really weird show. Our BBC iPlayer last year, but the profile is there. We are back to being the Premier Welsh Academy. All right, Cardiff probably have something to say about that as well, but we're doing it with significantly less resources. And again, that comes down to Booth and his whole pyramid of, well, it starts from the bottom. It starts from when we bring these guys in at 14, 15 to when they make their debut for Wales. That is his whole cycle.
That's his background. He was the academy guy at London Irish for a decade. in which time he brought through, the Armitages. He then brought through, when he moved into being a senior coach, very much promoted because he was so good at his job. When they had a couple of coaches leave, they brought him in. Instead of recruiting overseas, and he eventually moves up to being head coach. But in which time he brought through the likes of Jonathan Joseph, Anthony Watson, Alex Corbusiero, like players that went on to play for the Lions across the board, plenty of internationals. A lot of them then followed him to Bath when he left. And there was a lot of jokes at the time about, that all of London's Irish squad are going to Bath. And the common factor, was Toby Booth had just gone there. And all those players wanted to keep playing with him and working for him because he'd built such connections with them, being in the academy, then coming through as senior players. And it's always been his USP, is he's really good at developing young players. And the thing he's talked about repeatedly when talking about, the likes of James Fender and Dan Edwards and what have you, Morgan Morse at the minute, wanting to have control over when they get game time, when they get exposure, so you can build them a bit. And he perhaps lost some of that this season. As you say, the squad's been through a lot. They've been put under a lot of circumstances perhaps were beyond his control. And the handful of people, as you say, that have perhaps shorter memories and forget a lot of that are missing the fact that a lot of that is, beyond his control. And I think as a pure rugby coach, in terms of what he's done and what he's achieved, has been remarkable. And what other coaches could learn from him, frankly, is sitting down and talking to him for long sessions at a time. And picking his brains and working things out. We were talking a bit about we mentioned Dwayne Peel earlier, but like that is a guy whose focus is 100% on the rugby, clearly. And I don't think he's worked out yet how to manage a squad. And it was like my instinct when he got the Scarlets job was he's been promoted too soon. A bit like I feel like Borthwick's got the England job too soon. I feel like he needed another couple of years at Leicester to develop. But I think that feels like it's coming to roost. And you saw him, like his interview with Claire Thomas after the game on Sunday, where he looked like shell-shocked and unsure what to say. And like Claire asked him, do you think it was not taking opportunities rather than not creating them? And he kind of went back and forth and was unable to, point out what he was going to say. And like, if he goes into the changing room and presents like that, is your team going to keep to that? You compare it to then Booth last week when he was very clear in what he was talking about, and he may be going back and forth in his head, but like he knew how to present it. He knew how to manage the team, manage expectations, and manage also fan expectations. And like every game where the Ospreys have lost and have been frustrated, you then listen to him talking. Like, no, I trust him to put it right. I trust him to put that right. And if we're thinking that as fickle fans, you'd imagine a squad is as well who gets work from day in, day out.
There's that. That's my point with the coaches as well. Like Dwayne Peel has a really solid group of coaches around him, right? Jared Payne's in there, the Albert van der Boo, I want to say his name is. There's the South African. Gareth Williams is in there as apparently as the defence coach. Might want to rethink that one, lads. But they are what you said they are. They are rugby coaches, and they are brilliant at the rugby. Then you look at Ospreys with Duncan. I use Duncan, Mark Jones, and I use Fuss as an example. Richard Kelly probably go in there as well. Actually, they are into the culture as well. Like Duncan, you watch Duncan Jones in the warm up. He doesn't stand there barking at them. He's in there scrummaging. He's in there holding the tackle pads, getting tackled. You look at Mark Jones in that Scrum 5 interview today was playing on the wing. In training, mainly because we have got no players. It's also he's in and around there. He's the defence coach. He should not be running attacking drills, right? This is what I mean in terms of they have bought into this culture, and it is a happy and healthy one. So I think we've talked enough about Booth's culture.
The best thing we can say about Toby Booth, right, is that we beat the Scarlets by 30-odd points last week, right? And we've barely talked about it because we wanted to lavish praise on this guy instead.
Yeah, absolutely. I think let's talk about the game. So for those who need reminding, Ospreys 31, Scarlets 9. Scarlets scoring 3 penalties from eerily the same place by Yohan Lloyd. Ospreys scoring 4 tries through 2 through human cannonball Kieran Williams, 1 through the quietly really good captain Morgan Morris, and the final and fourth one, the 75th minute by World Player of the Year Dan Edwards. Jack Walsh kicked Three conversions and a penalty at that Edwards kick in the final conversion. Utter forward dominance is the basis of this performance. From minute one, you could just see that they were up for it more.
Do you know
Go on.
the one real disappointment of this game, right? I was really waiting for Ryan Elias to teach us how to jackal.
Yeah.
It's from last week's podcast. It stood out the entire way through the game. I kept thinking about the thing that I forget which of the two lads that came on at the end.
Hugh and Martin.
Yeah, I think it was Martin said, Ryan Elias is going to teach you boys how to jackal this weekend. And the entire way through the game, I was waiting for it. Because I think, Jack Morgan, Morgan Morris, Rhys Davis as well, I thought was fantastic. All of them really struggling to know how to jackal until Ryan Elias showed them.
Well, I was waiting for Ryan Elias to do anything, quite frankly. Like, turn up would have been nice. But I'm not going to rag on the Scarlets.
But yes, yes.
Talk about Ospreys. Yeah, utter forward dominance. Let's start with that. Yes, Dave, how are the forward pack to you?
Good. I think one of the first questions from the press conference, I think someone asked Toby Booth, bonus point win at home against your rivals. I think it was something like, it doesn't get much better than that. And the reply was, no, next question. And that is probably the perfect response, especially after the Derby defeat the weekend before, because, well, Nicky Smith, from where I was sitting, Nicky Smith and Harry O'Connor, that battle of the scrum, Nicky Smith probably won 100% of the scrums there. There was one where I think there might have been a reset, or it might even have been a Scarlets penalty for the both slipping down at the beginning. Smith absolutely tears into Harry O'Connor, and that was like the benchmark for that scrum. And it was only going to be matched by those three and the three that came off the bench. And obviously, I think, well, with those scrums, I think probably when they were set in, I think that was probably the issue with a couple of penalties. But once they got together and it all sat and it all worked and the ball was in the scrum, the Ospreys really turned the screw and they were utterly dominant there. Dewi Lake was brilliant with his lineouts, even though there's a chunk of his shirt still missing somewhere. I don't know if there's a reward out there if someone can find it, but it's still out there somewhere. I thought he was brilliant. And you obviously mentioned Elias right there. He had a couple of faulty ones in the second half. And I think the Ospreys ended up on something like 94% line-out accuracy, which is, again, brilliant.
Unheard of if you're an Ospreys fan.
Yeah.
We never get that.
Doesn't happen very often. And then, well, the 3 second rows, I'm going to call them the 3 second rows, obviously. Rhys Davis 6. But James Fender looks like a man that's been playing rugby for about 100 years. And he's played test match rugby. He's got about 150 odd caps. He just knows what he's doing. And there was a Maul defence right in front of me about 2 minutes for half time. I think Adam Beard had given away a penalty for a Maul infringement, which looked quite harsh at the time. And the Scarlets kick into the Ospreys territory, and they win the line out, and in comes Fender straight away with Rhys Davis, and it causes chaos, complete and utter chaos. And yeah, those two, Beard went well. He topped the line out takes out of, well, he was joint top with a couple of other players in the URC this week, and yeah, those lot all played well. And I haven't even got to the fact that Jack Morgan was very good and Morgan Morris was very good. And I haven't even got to the backs yet. So that was a very good performance and something that every Ospreys supporter can be really pleased for. And that's probably the standard now. That's probably what Ospreys fans probably expect in terms for when everyone's available. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit trickier to replicate that during a Six Nations where there's quite a few away. But that was a very good performance.
Yeah, I think if you look through that team, right, you can make an argument for Gareth Davis, but 1 to 23, you'll take every Ospreys player's performance over their opposite number.
Well,
Like,
I was going to make this point actually. Someone on the Scarlet Fever forum, which, by the way, if you haven't been on that forum, it's a fucking gold mine this week, especially the thread about the game. But there are a few wise people on there. And someone said, well, if you look at both teams for the game, absolutely, you take the Ospreys back any day of the week, maybe barring via Fafita. But you would take, on just looking at the teams, you would take that Scarlets backline 9 to 15, without a doubt. And that's no disparage on Rubes or Walshy or anyone like that. You would take that Scarlets backline. Yet you look at Sunday, sorry, they were hopeless. Johnny Williams had about 5 carries for about 2 meters. Johan Lloyd was good, but he was playing under really bad circumstances. Both nines had probably their worst performance at Scarlet's jersey for a good while. Johnny McNichol continues, despite being a test player, to have the worst positioning for a fullback I've ever seen. And Steph Evans did, in all fairness to Steph Evans, he did what he was asked, which wasn't much on Sunday. He chased kicks really well. He put Nagy under pressure. And then, was it Tom Rogers, the other winger?
yeah.
Yeah, he didn't have a great game. The fact that I'm asking who was in the other wing says it all. But in terms of Ospreys, you're absolutely right, Robbie. From 1 to 23, every Ospreys player outshone their opposite number. Probably only via Fafita being the standout for Scarlets, but even then, I would have taken Rhys Davis over him.
Yeah. I thought, like, we obviously, I think, asked some fair questions of Rhys Davis as a 6 last week.
Yeah.
And I thought he was fantastic. I thought this was one of his best games for the Ospreys, period, end of. 2 turnovers, like the way he adapted to play in a 6 role, whilst also still bringing the things he brings in terms of, line out work, in terms of hitting rucks, in terms of, just being a really good kind of support second row. But the way he was far more present in defense, the way he was turning up and making bigger shots, flying out of line a bit, and being more of a menace at the breakdown, the way he adapted this game and added to it, I thought he was absolutely fantastic. And then, Jack Morgan might have been, obviously, the greatest player in the world, Kieran Williams, 2 tries, man of the match, but I think Jack Morgan might have been the best player on the field quietly, or not so quietly. Yeah. He was just absolutely brilliant. Again, attack and defense, the lines he picks, the way he can make so much out of seemingly nothing. Carries where most players are making like 2 yards and getting a little bit over the gain line. He's making clean breaks because of the way he can hit an angle and the way he can explode through contact and just time his acceleration. He's unbelievable. He's just phenomenal.
Well, there were only 2 line breaks in the game. That was Jack Morgan and Max Nagy.
Wow.
That says it all. The Nagy one came in the 75th minute when everyone's tired and it's a dodgy hit. And then you've got Jack Morgan's, which came from Adam Beard, right? Who had a really quietly good game, like he always does. Adam Beard had like stupid amount of passes. I think he was up to like nearly 10 passes in the game because he has such lovely hands and he puts people in on lovely lines, like he did with Jack Morgan. Jack Morgan is the most Fijian man to come from Cwmtwch. because there was a lot of. I remember watching the England-Fiji game in the World Cup warm-ups, and they were talking about they're obsessed, and rightly so, with the stat of meters in contact with Fijian players because they're making 5+ meters every time they carry the ball. Right, that's Jack Morgan. He carries the ball, and you're thinking, right, you go. If that's any other player, he goes down there, but no, Jack Morgan's made 4 meters on top of that. Oh no, he's made a line break now. And if it wasn't for Max, because Max Nagy, if you look at that line break that Adam Beard puts him in on, Max Nagy doesn't expect Jack to make that line break. No. So he's not on the shoulder to go in for the easy try. And it's just probably a testament to how good Jack Morgan is because he has no right to make that line break at all. And you're right, Robbie, he was man of the match, barring because the greatest player in the world, Keith, scored 2. In terms of other stand-up performers, you talked about Dewi Lake. He was looked around 15 carries, near perfect darts, only via Fafita stealing 1. James Fender top tackle charts with 16 for the Ospreys. I thought the front row went well altogether. Tom Bota, Nicky Smith. The sexiest man of all time came on. Rhys Henry looked fine. Again, he just looks
He looked
solid every
wonderful.
time he
He
comes on.
played
Yeah.
fine.
Well, he's got skinhead now, and Hugh
Mm.
Griffin was saying like his comb over was going to like blow over in the wind, and I was like, huh? He has a skinhead. You cannot make this joke. Gareth Thomas came on, looked a bit rusty in them first two scrums, but they were technical penalties. He then folded Joe Jones like a pretzel, and sent him back to the Will Griff John factory. Um, yeah, I think we have to give a shout out to both sets of halfbacks because they controlled that game brilliantly.
Mm.
I've been informed that Ruben is still the highest kick, has the highest amount of kicks in play in the URC. It was 65 this season, adding 12 to his total. And he also has 309 passes. So Ospreys are retaining the ball. They're kicking. I think their kicking game this season has been a lot better. They kicked
Yeah.
they kicked more than the Scarlets this weekend, but they kicked much more effectively. And you can call it playing the conditions. I just think they're playing smart rugby.
Yeah.
Jack Walsh, I think, had his most sensible Jack Walsh game. He still does the Jack Walsh things, but I just think he controlled that really well. He was vocal. He was, for me, he had a really good game, and he rightly took some flack against Dragons. Probably didn't have his best game, and he takes flack from a lot of people. And I've been a Jack Walsh defender since day one. He's a fly half. He makes mistakes. All fly halves do. Some mistouch, some don't kick their goals. But he was 4 from 4 off the tee. You know, kicks really well to touch. Which I think go through the.
I think the thing that really stood out about Jack Walsh, and I think this was one of, if not his best game for the Ospreys. I think his best games overall have been this season, though. And I thought this was a real standout game. And the thing that's just changed is just he's learned when to kick. He was always perfectly capable as a kicker.
Yeah.
But he kicked on first phase, or he kicked after 10 phases when they were going, if they hadn't got turned over by then. And he wouldn't kick when they had momentum, when they were going forward. And it's the thing that's really changed in his game is he's learned to look up and scan, and perhaps thing Booth's talked about a number of times is like he was drawn to him because he's got a rugby league background. He wanted someone that can run a kind of rugby league style attack. And so we've kind of seen him in past. He would run a set of, almost like a set of 6 in rugby league. And then he wouldn't be looking to kick in between until you get to that last phase when you've got to kick. And we've seen him kind of start to understand the momentum that exists far more in professional rugby than, lower levels down and then in, rugby league at all. And he's just like, he's learned to control a game at this level over the course of, I think, the summer and then this season. And he's grown into such a good player. But yeah, just the way he kicked, the way Ruben Morgan-Williams kicked. And the really interesting thing, just to bring up the kicking stat, right? But, so the Ospreys obviously kicked more. They only retained 1 kick directly. The Scarlets retained 5. And yet, because the Ospreys had the defence that was set and they were ready to kind of pressure afterwards, the number of times, the thing that isn't brought up in that stat, where the Scarlets supposedly look at that and go like, oh, they've got the more successful kicking game because they're, retaining the kicks directly. They're then not doing much with it, where the Ospreys are able to pressure, and then strike because this defence is built by Mark Jones. There's one at the end of the first half where you had the kind of succession in one phase, push the Scarlets back like 20 metres and force a series of hurried passes. I think this like the way the defence and kicking game are starting to interlink is really promising and really exciting. Kind of from an Ospreys perspective, just following on from the Jack Walsh, Morgan Williams thing.
That's a really good point, actually, because I was listening to Blundin yesterday night, and Josh said something about Max Nagy has been, he's a good player, but he can't catch a ball. And I almost think that in this current Osprey system, that doesn't actually matter, because if he catches a ball, brilliant, we get the ball. If he knocks it on, brilliant, we get a scrum. Do you know what?
Yeah,
that's absolutely fine, and that's not me being like boastful or anything. We do have the 3rd best scrum in the URC. Probably only the Bulls. I'm trying to think who else might be better than us. Bulls definitely. Definitely. So definitely the Bulls. Maybe look at one of the other South African teams. But it's not the end of the world if you get a scrum. If you're some teams, like if you're, maybe a Newcastle or someone who is struggling at scrum time. Saracens have sometimes had a scrum that goes back and they're really not. Or you're a team like Scarlets, you knock that ball on, you're your Wyn Jones, who looked a shell of himself on the weekend in Tom Bota. All of a sudden, that's a psychological thing because I might give up a penalty and I'm just going to give up 40 yards anyway because Jack Welch is kicking really well. I think that's a testament to Nagy as well because it takes the pressure off him. Because he's like, wait, you go up for that high ball, Max, but if you drop it, if you knock it on, you drop it. Of course, we want to keep the ball, but it's fine. We'll win the ball back in the scrum. And let's go into Max Nagy because I was in my Max Nagy stonks era again. He's playing really well. He's just playing so confidently, and I love watching Ospreys fullback just have that license. And as someone who has watched Max for 4 years now, he has not changed as a player. He's evolved, but not changed. He's really vocal in D. He says, right. He's got that lovely. It's not sidestep. It's a change of angle. Dan Evans had it as well, where he goes to shape to kick and then runs a lovely angle. When you mentioned that Dan Evans was on his crutches early collecting his food, I like to think he cut a really nice angle through the queue.
Oh, of course he did. Yeah,
just like he did, just like he did in his heyday. But
and he was always there. He was always in the queue.
He's
never missed a single meal.
Oh, I love Dan Evans. Bring him back. But seriously, no, but that's when you've got a fullback like that, who's like Cam Winnett's exactly the same. And I don't like pitting them against each other because I think they're both playing really, really well. And I've said this to Harley on Carter Central. He just and then he has the confidence to try. I'm going to try that little kick against the Scarlets, and it came off right, and it led to World Player of the Year Dan Edwards scoring a try. But I like the fact that we're confident enough to try that because, right, I trust Mark Jones's defensive system to mop it up. If he knocks it on, like I said, I trust the scrum. There was nothing that worried me on the weekend. Yestin, talk to me about Dan Edwards. Are you aboard the hype train?
Yes, he was a year above me in school, so.
Oh wow!
Who didn't you go to school with? May I just add?
I actually don't know. It just feels like there's been an abundance of rugby players that just come out of West Lavera school for whatever reason, and then there's me. So I really don't fit the mold at the minute because you got Morgan Morse who's in the year below me, Dan Edwards in the year above me, yeah, Hopkins was another one.
Oh wow!
Then you got a couple of other boys. So someone like Clean Morgans with the under-20s, he was in my year. Rodri Lewis was in the academy. He was also in my year and a good mate of mine.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, what on earth am I doing in this school when there's so many good rugby players here?
Is that weird? Is that like really surreal to see?
Yeah, because I briefly played with Morgan Morse at under 11s and Clean Morgan actually. And it's like, and you're looking back at it now, thinking, wow, I can actually say that I've played a game of rugby, regardless of it being me as a 10-year-old running around, probably trying to avoid being tackled. But I could potentially say in the future that I've played a game of rugby with Morgan Morse, who could potentially end up being a Welsh international. I'm not saying
that's like me with Regan Grace, though. I played with Regan Grace.
Oh, wow.
He's a year above me in school, but we played for the same club briefly before he got scouted by St. Helens. But I can also say that, when he scores these wieldy tries for St. Helens or wherever he ends up in Union, I was like, I've seen you outside the headmaster's office, like looking scared. That I can't take that image away.
I had a kid in my year at school that went on to play 2 games for Mansfield Town. And that is the closest we came in the non-league football. And that is the closest we came ever to sporting prowess.
2 games for Mansfield.
Yeah.
That is like when I walked into, and I love Morriston Comprehensive with all my heart, but you walked into the reception and it's Joe Thomas's Wales under-20s jersey alongside like a myriad of football, because there's a football dominated school, but a myriad of like Swans and Wales jersey, and there's just Joe Thomas's under-20s jersey. And I'm like, yes, Joe Thomas, thank you. Houston Sabercats legend, Joe Thomas.
Is that where he is? Oh wow!
No, he went there for a season. He's back now. I know he works as like a WIU hub officer now while playing for Swansea. But he was at Houston Sabercats for 1 year after leaving Leicester Tigers. Which, if you did like one of them TikToks where it was like weird rugby transfers,
yeah,
would be up there. It would be Joe Thomas from Ospreys to Leicester to Houston
He just
Sabercats.
loves big cats.
Yeah.
He loves big cats.
He loves big
He's
animals
done his lions
and,
next.
really, really like 6.5 out of 10 centre.
Maybe that was
He's
his
actually
dream.
10 for Swansea over the last couple
Has
of weeks.
he?
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
brilliant.
See,
Give me
he's
that.
vintage. Like me and my brother have this thing where we will randomly bring up a player from the past that's perhaps forgotten, then go good player, and he won't go good player back. Just to people remember. Joe Thomas though, good player,
Yeah, good player.
good player.
Jonathan Spratt, good player.
Jonathan Spratt, average player. Now this is
I've read the article.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
you read the article.
When you mentioned
when.
when you mentioned Toby Booth and EQ over IQ earlier, which reminded me, I wrote an article for Grav on Rock and Roll
Yeah.
when he launched his website about Toby Booth, and that was the working title was EQ over IQ, and so that's a weird full circle moment.
I wonder if he read it like Jonathan Spratt read my piece on him, that was a very straight. This is a whole other tangent. That was a whole other.
I will finish this tangent, but I saw him last at the Northampton pre-season game at Bridgend last year, sat next to Ben John, and I was like, "This is a weird reunion, which I want to see more of."
So I've met Ben John a handful of times now, and like we get on really well. It's cool. I shouldn't bring it up. I should never bring up that I wrote the Jonathan Spratt piece that was that was the first thing about rugby I ever had published. Was a piece on why Jonathan Spratt is the most average rugby player of all time and why that's a wonderful thing that apparently I think he read and was very confused by. I see he's got a face like a man who knows lots about the history of tarmac. And I don't know. This is a whole tangent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, we've been going for a long time.
Right, let's go into. So we beat the Scarlets, right? We didn't have to do anything special. All we did was just stick to a system, and the Scarlets just sort of threw shit at a wall, and none of it stuck. That's essentially what the game was. It wasn't a very exciting game. It was just a really functional. It was a Jonathan Spratt game. That's what it was. All right. It was really average. It was a Ben John.
It was really good. That won't set the world alight, but really good. Good core skills.
And I highly recommend going to Viaplay's Twitter and watching there's an 11-minute interview with Toby Booth after the game. That's a really, really good watch. But yeah, really good. Go back and watch the game. Scrum dominance. We played with some width as well at times. High Stocks and James Fender. And that's pretty much where we are. We move on to Benetton away, the dual Benetton derby, which is now turned into a David versus Goliath match, because Benetton have £800 million budget, non-Italian internationals coming out their ears, and it's now a fortress to go over to Treviso. Toby Booth has said that he's going to be taking a rotated squad with obviously one eye on the return fixture in the Challenge Cup. Should we have a go at trying to name a squad? So for context, I have been sent he will remain not anonymous. But thank you for sending me this. He is very much in the know. We have it on good authority that Jack Morgan, Morgan Morris, Adam Beard, and Owen Watkin have all got the week off. Which makes sense. Morgan Morris has played to nearly every minute of the season. It's about managing Jack Morgan's minutes. Owen Watkins also played every game, and same with Adam Beard as well, but we got depth at lock. Gents, I'm going to predict soon. I shall write it down. Who do we think is going to be our starting loose head?
Well, Gareth Thomas is about the only one of the Wales players that hasn't had a great deal of game time since he's got back. So you'd imagine this is a prime game for him to step in. He played 20 odd minutes last week, and that's been it. Obviously, with his personal issue the week before caused him to pull out. So yeah, I feel this is time for Gareth Thomas to step in. Yes, I don't know if you'd look on similar lines.
Yeah, I'm in agreement there. I think we've seen Nicky Smith. He's been playing. He's been good fun. And it's a chance to see what our other loose-head international prop can do. It was somehow first choice for Wales, but not for the Ospreys in a way. That's all weird and fun. But time to start with Gareth Thomas, I think.
Spoiler: the other loose heads for Wales aren't very good. Hooker. Are we expecting Ethan Lewis to be back in? Are we expecting, the likes
Sam
of
Parry
Sam Parry? I think is Sam
getting a
Parry.
start.
Yeah, probably deserves it. He'll score a hat trick somehow. Because weirdly, right, I don't want to hear this Johnny Matthews talk, right? Johnny Matthews is just a copy of Sam Parry, right? Sam Parry's been doing this for years, right? This is just a cheap imitation, right? Come back when you're scoring hat tricks against Benetton. Weirdly, no, yeah, Sam Parry. We'll come onto the bench later, but I think we'll see Marnus van der Merwe.
I'll tell you what, you're right. Sam Parry has scored 34 career tries. Johnny Matthews only scored 31.
Yeah, I mean, we'll ignore Johnny Matthews has only done it in about 50 appearances, but
He's 30. He's 30. It's
exactly,
fine. He's 1 year younger.
exactly. And Sam Parry has 100, was it nearly 180 appearances now?
Yeah.
Tight head. Are we seeing White Chocolate himself, Big Sexy?
Oh, yeah. Gavin
It
Henson.
is.
Back.
No, Reece Henry. Reece Henry will be starting tight head. I
And
think.
Charlotte Church alongside.
Charlotte Church. We could see Ben Warren. He was involved in the
Yeah.
warm-up. I don't think, for continuity-wise, I think we'll see Reece Henry. There is talk
Wonder if
of
this will be the mythical Tom Boter finally missing a league game, so Martin Gilliam can not bring up that stat every minute of every scrum for the rest of the season.
No, for that Tom Boter's starting now because Martin Gillingham cannot rest until Tom Boter has missed a game.
They'll just be both will be naming the squad, and a very
Yeah.
nasal voice will just whisper in his ear, "Barrington's got to start."
Somewhere when the Toby Booth signs it off on the team, Martin Gillingham has a shiver down his spine. The crows start flying away, and the church bells chime. It is done. Loose headlock number 4. Are we seeing James Fender?
You'd imagine, yeah.
Yeah. No reason why he wouldn't be in there. I think we'll be seeing Rhys Davis at 5.
Yeah, moving back or forward, moving about, shuffling.
You could maybe make an argument he'll be captain.
Oh, I suppose if Morgan Morris is missing, if Jack Morgan's missing, if Tips is still missing, that's interesting. Has he captained before?
He might have captained. No,
I
he
don't
might
think
have captained once. Or am I thinking of someone else?
But Booth has mentioned about how he wants to switch up the leadership roles in a way. I think it was one of the quotes. I think he said something about Jack Morgan, and he said, "Oh, and that's why Morgan Morris was captain."
Yeah, it's the same with Dewi Lake because just because they're captains for Wales doesn't mean they walk back in here and become captain for. There's only a few players who could do that, and Prime Alwyn Jones is one. He'd walk into the Ospreys and be captain again. Who are we picking at 6? This is where I feel we're getting a bit thin.
We ran out of all our big 6s. Oh no!
This is it. Once you do take the Morgans out,
yeah.
Harry Deeves comes into the back row regardless.
So are we saying Harry Deeves at 7 then?
Yeah. And then you're looking at, potentially you're looking at Rhys Davis moving back to 6 and bringing Lewis Jones in, who's obviously only played the one game off the bench.
So we could say Derwin's son is starting, yeah.
Yeah, Derwin's son, not Lewis Jones.
Yeah.
But you're kind of regardless looking at starting someone who has had very minimal game time. So Tristan Davis, sorry.
He was my next thing, was going to be Tristan Davis.
Yeah. So one of, you feel, Derwin's son, Tristan Davis and Morgan Morse is going to have to start at least one. And all of those, they've got 4 appearances between them. So there's going to be a big call somewhere and a huge day for someone to really put down a marker. And it's hard to say without necessarily being in the camp all the time to see which one's chomping at the bit most, which one's working hardest for it, which one looks there. As someone who watched in the 20s, obviously you're really yes, I'm no better than anyone. You're hyped for Morgan Morse. But Tristan Davis, Alwyn Jones talked a few times about how impressed he was in training with him, and Yeah,
So are
it's
we
hard to
saying
say.
it's going to be a Tristan Davis, Harry Deeves, Morgan Morse back row?
That'd be tasty.
It's
Inexperienced
lacking
as
in
heck.
leadership. Yeah, it's lacking in leadership, but it's certainly a possibility. But we're here for vibes and vibes only. 9, are we saying Ruben's having a rest? Are we saying Kruger starts, Luke Davis, Cameron Jones?
Think that's it, isn't it? I think you bring Korea in at 9,
Yeah,
put Ruben on the bench, let him slide back to his old role of coming on for where Biafri throws an intercept pass and being better than him. Only I hope Korea throws no interception passes and is great.
yeah. Oh, yeah, I hope Korea is great. So we're saying Korea at 9. 10, I think we'll see the return of Owen Williams. Yes, do
Oh,
you
of
agree?
course.
Yeah, I do. I think hopefully Jack Walsh is all okay, and it would be nice to see him back fit again. Hopefully it's not a long term. Obviously, we mentioned there was a precaution, but yeah, someone with the experience of Owen Williams who, we need him back because we are playing Montpellier away soon. So that would be nice to recreate that again. And someone that's obviously in Welsh international, and I think him just being around in training will help someone like Dan Edwards big time.
Yeah, I think if Walsh was if Owen wasn't 100%, you'd see World Player of the Year Dan Edwards starting this game. But I think it's a game too far for him.
Yeah.
I think it's just come at the wrong time in terms of where we are in the block. Um,
I think you put him on the bench again.
yeah, you put him on the bench.
And look to give him another 20 minutes and see if
Yeah.
he can do the same sort of thing. Score another win try.
Winger. So first winger, I think Luke Morgan is still going to be in there.
We
We've
haven't
had
really got anyone else left.
we've had no official update on Keelan.
Mm.
With Toby Fricker, Don Morris are still both in moon boots. I saw Toby Fricker on the weekend. Actually, he is still in the moon boot.
Okay.
So yeah,
There
I
was
think we're just
mention
going
of
to see
him in
Luke
that
Morgan.
Scrum 5 pod was in the rehab and recovery room with Ratty.
Yeah,
So you'd imagine he's still not
I,
100%.
I have a feeling Morris is closer than Fricker, but
Okay.
that's pure speculation. 12, I think we'll see Keith.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no reason if we know that Watkin is out, that essentially means Keith is starting at 12. There are no other candidates. 13, George.
It's going to have to be, isn't it? If his knee's okay.
George North at 13.
I was having this conversation with someone, Cardiff fan the other day, who was asking if George North does go. It looks like it'll be at the end of the season rather than mid-season, as some talk
Yeah.
at the point of who's your next 13, and you realize like, oh shit, no, it's Watkin and North, and then that's it. Then you're looking at Tom Florence is injured.
Yeah,
He's on his ACL, so suddenly there is no one left.
Which is where I think we'll look at a centre if we do get a space in the budget. Is a centre if Tom Florence isn't because when Tom Florence did play, I thought he looked quite good.
Yeah,
I'm thinking
he's
back
good
to
for the
the Sharks game last year in South Africa where he came in at the last minute for Mikey Collins. Michael Collins, please come back. You follow the pod. I know you're listening. Come home. 14, there's only one man and captain, Daniel Kasende. I say, yeah, it's a no-brainer. We have no one else unless Harry. I think Harry Houston might travel with the squad. Houston, would you say?
Yeah, I think so. He's had a bit of game time in the Welsh Prem, so I think it's an experience for him as a young player, just to have that traveling environment and be a part of the wider squad. So yeah, I think he might travel. I think it's probably a bit too soon for him to be thrown into an away game against Benetton.
The other option, and he was in the warm-up, is Yeston Hopkins.
Oh, good. Okay.
So he was back in the warm-up. So, and he's present in all the changing room shots and whatnot. So we could be seeing a Yeston Hopkins back soon. We'll talk about that bench in a minute. 15, does he drop Nagy?
I think if it is, it's for Hopkins to give him a rest, but I would keep him in.
Same here.
I'd keep him going. I think he's played better when he's had momentum, when he's kind of been able to, get a run of games going.
Yeah, part of the reason why he dropped off and Yeston Hopkins came in was he had that concurrent injury issues. I think he did his elbow. he'd done his knee the year before, so he's staggered in terms of his performances. And then Jason Hopkins came in, had that solid run of games from Munster up until it was the last game of Dragons at home,
Mm.
and looked solid. So yeah, like you said, Robbie, consistency. Let's look at the bench very quickly then. We saying Manus or we saying Ethan Lewis? Manus van der Merwe or Ethan Lewis?
Oh, I was not on first name terms with him. No, yeah, I think we've signed him. We might as well give him a game.
Yeah, Manus van der Merwe, he can go in the one cap club. Yestin, who's our replacement loosehead?
Oof. Who is left? That's the question.
Garin.
Oh
Is he
yeah,
injured?
that was me being a little bit silly. Yeah, Garen Phillips. I was thinking Cam Jones, the loose head, but obviously now you've just mentioned Garen Phillips. He's popped back into my head, so I will go with him.
Who's that Cockney lad they signed to keep Boofy company as well?
This is the other one. Is James Kenny going to be involved?
Mm.
Because he played for Swansea on the weekend. So I'm going to put Slash and I'm going to put James Kenny. Because he's a big boy.
There's quite a lot of
Boofy.
young loose heads coming through because you got Freddie Chapman as well.
Freddie Chapman, you've got Cian Hire can play loose. I know he's predominantly a tight. As well as Cam Jones. I'm trying to think who's in the uni as well.
Yes,
It'll come to me.
Freddie something, the Welsh qualified Cockney, they clearly signed just because Boofy was missing having enough one around.
Yeah.
Someone to go with the apples and pears with him.
18 replacement tight head. It's going to be Ben Warren or Tom Boter.
Yeah.
Again, Martin Gillingham will have a say in this. Why is Martin Gillingham now a URC commentator? Where's that come from?
Every single game. And he does like 3 games a weekend as well. Yeah, relentless gills. Like a fish that can't quit.
And then replacement lot. Are we saying? Well, it's going to be Derwin son, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of got to be. If he isn't starting.
Again, we're probably picking the doomsday team here in terms of how much he's going to rotate.
Yeah.
But we've also taken into account what we've got available, which is not a lot. We've lost 40% of our squad.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Do we have someone else to go on the bench? Do we have to go for like a 4-5?
What can we go for? We've got 4 at the minute, so we can go for a 4-4 bench. Like that's a thing.
That's happened before, actually.
Yeah.
During the Alan Clark era, I think the Ospreys somehow managed to have 4 front rowers and about 2 fly halves. One of them was James Hook on the bench against the Cheetahs one year in Swansea, which saw Ivan Phillips score a last-minute try, which was converted by Sam Davis, and the Ospreys won by a point for leading for about 3.5 seconds.
I don't believe you because the Ospreys never won a game in the Alan Clark era.
No, but when they did win, it was really depressing. It was like really sad wins.
Shout out the 8-7 win against Ulster with Alan Davis charged down a kick with his head.
Yeah, that was the coachless era. That was the era when Alan
Clark that was the Wild West, wasn't it?
He was sacked.
Yeah, because that was
the
again, my James Hook story for another time. But
I love the James Hook story.
Yeah,
I do love the James Hook story. This is why you're not invited to the press conferences anymore, Robbie.
It was
just in case James Hook is there.
Just in case he turns up.
Can you sign my book, James? Who's it to? Alan Clark? Question mark. Alan Clark's lawyers. That's who it's to. Oh God! Have we got a replacement back rower? I don't think we do.
This lad, Alex Ashton, the young lock, seems to be the other guy in the squad.
Is Jack Regan alive?
I don't know.
Is he an NFT? I think he's an NFT.
The only times we've seen Jack, no, what's his name? Yeah, Jack Regan is in those little like videos they post on social media where they're like, who liked the Barbie movie the best, and he'll walk by and go, "It was Max Nagy." And that's it. That's his entire contribution to the Ospreys.
Because you're like looking away from them videos doing something else while it's on, and then you turn back. It's like, wait a minute, is Alan Clark back?
Yeah.
Because there's an Northern Irishman or a Dubliner. Sorry, I don't want to mix them up. I was like, so if he's alive, I mean, like the look of Jack Regan. He's a big boy. He gets about. Like, he played that weird Zebra game we played last year, where we
Yeah,
were
yeah.
amazing for 10 minutes and then made Zebra look like 2021 La Rochelle. But if he's alive, Jack Regan. But yeah, I'm going to put Jack Regan / Alex Ashton / insert AI player there.
We could throw Lewis Lloyd on the back row. He's reasonably quick for hooker. I don't know.
Yeah, could do.
All starting to get Kieran Williams could probably play 10, and we can move Ben Warren into the back row, and Owen Williams can
Please.
play tight head.
Like
I don't
that,
know. We can
like
make
that
it
weird
work.
time where Ken played 8.
Yes.
I want Ben. No, Reece Henry at 8. That's who I want.
I mean, Dewi Lake used to be an 8.
Yeah, I watched. Years ago, I watched him play for Skewen when he was converted into hooker. So he was like balancing between the two. Ruben, we're saying bring off that experience, and then World Player of the Year, Dan Edwards, and then not real person Luke Scully.
Yeah, it'll have to be.
Yeah, look. We know it's depressing, guys. It's not a box office team, but look, we have to. It's a 13 game block, and we have to prioritize, certain games. We want to run in Europe. I think we have a real chance this year. Montpellier are in the dogs. They've just got rid of Cockrell. They sit bottom of the top 14. They've employed a criminal as their coach. It's yeah.
And the state of the Challenge Cup this year as well, with
Yeah.
obviously there being -2 English teams, means that basically if you win one game and pick up another somewhere, you're suddenly looking at a chance to get out of the group.
Absolutely.
Because 16 out of 24 teams get out, I think. Or it might even be 20 teams. But
it's like an American sports league
a
where
very
everyone
doable
wins.
task.
So just to go over the squad that we've predicted. So the Ospreys Eyrie squad for Benetton away is Gareth Thomas, Sam Parry, Reece Henry, James Fender, Rhys Davis as captain, Tristan Davis at 6, Harry Deebs at 7, Morgan Morse at 8, Revan Krier at 9, Owen Williams at 10, Luke Morgan at 11, Keith at 12, George North at 13, Daniel Kasende 14, Max Nagy 15. On the bench, you got Marnus van der Merwe, either Garen Phillips or James Kenny. 18, Ben Warren or squad father Tom Boter. 19 is Lewis Jones or Derwin's son. 20 is insert an AI player there. 21 Ruben, 22 Dan Edwards Hype Train, and 23 Luke Scully. Gents, I think that is a perfect way to end the pod. Robbie did message me before the game on Sunday and distracted me for the entire warm-up, where we went through our niche 15 last week, and we now want to put together a Streets Won't Forget 15.
Oh, here we go. I haven't done any.
So we're not going to do it tonight, but I think we go away, and I think maybe when we get Robbie on next, because I know he's busy back on the video train. Because he's already told me what the next video is, and he needs to actually knuckle down and do it.
It's supposed to be done by now. Yeah, I'm supposed to get it off to.
So when Robbie's on next, so maybe next week, maybe the week after, we will go through our Streets Will Not Forget 15 each, because I will put time aside to do that. In fact, I'm going to go do it right now. But that is the Ospreys versus Scarlets review, a preview for the Benetton game. Yeston, are we on telly this weekend?
Yes, we're on SOC, I think.
Yes, finally, we're on a free-to-air game.
Because the derby's still on Viaplay.
Yes,
only because they can have the rights then Boxing Day, so BBC can have one derby and SOC can have the other.
Have you heard? Viaplay is no more.
Yeah.
Premier Sports are back.
So I wanted to introduce a new segment after recommending a Royal Affair starring Mads Mikkelsen last week, where I recommend a Danish language film on Viaplay each week that you have me on until you stop inviting me, because it will happen.
This is why. This is why they've dropped Viaplay. They've listened to us.
This is it. This is it, right? It's currently the only place to watch Anders Thomas Jensen's 2002 film Adam's Apples, starring also Mads Mikkelsen and Nicolas Bro, the Danish comic actor, which is a great and very weird comedy about a neo-Nazi who gets put up at a church with a very delusional priest played by Mads Mikkelsen, who turns a blind eye to literally everything. It's very good and very silly, and it's only on Viaplay. Is the only place you can watch it with English subtitles.
Well, fortunately,
and that is going
we're on
away.
S4C.
That is going away.
Fortunately, we're on S4C, so you can watch,
You can watch
instead.
it with Welsh
You can,
language subtitles.
you can watch the Publicum Omnibus, or Jonathan, because somehow that's still on.
Forever. That show will never end.
So yeah, we are kicking off 7:25 on Saturday evening, just to round up the Welsh rugby for the weekend. No Friday night game, which feels like the first time in ages we haven't had a Friday night game. It's the derby that no one likes. It's Cardiff Blues versus the Scarlets. Which actually holds the record for fans walking the shortest distance to the game. Because all the Scarlets fans will be coming from Pontcanna. So yeah, that's on at 3:00. That'll be a tasty one. And then the Lions host the Dragons at 3:05. Dragons, unfortunately, not going to be playing their backs coach as 10. Boo! Why do you hate rugby? That's it. So all four Welsh teams are on a Saturday. Before the last weekend, before we move into the proper rugby, where we will be going to the EPCR Challenge Cup.
I just checked, right? 16 out of 18 teams get out of the pool.
So perfect. So I can't wait for Ospreys and the Black Lions to not get out of the pool.
Yep.
That's what's happening. But yeah, so let's wrap it up there, lads. Thank you very much, Robbie. We hope to see you again, hopefully next week. If you've got the new video out, you are invited back every week.
I appreciate that.
We move into the European week next week, so it's Benetton at home next week. Ospreys have extended their ticket sale, Cyber Monday deal for £10 a ticket. Please get onto it. Other than that, gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure. We shall see you again next week.